Resume recording. All right, recording in progress. All right, we're calling the meeting to order. Public comment. Any public comment? Looks
Guess
like
not.
no. All right, anybody want to make a motion to approve minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the
I'll-
minutes, 6:16.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, next one is approval of the 2022 draft budget levy and service provider agreement. So I'll screen share that. So this is the summary sheet. I'll sort of walk everybody through this real quick. In a nutshell, we are still under our tax rate cap and our statutory caps on admin personnel, which is 30%, and carryover 25%. We are over the 5% year over year change in levy amount that triggers the requirement for a community meeting. So we'll have to do that at some point. It can be combined with a regular SSA commission meeting. We've done it before for Sheridan Road and a couple of the other SSAs. It's kind of a box checking exercise. And really most of the increase in this year over year levy comes from expansion of services under our existing provider contracts to Jarvis Square, because they weren't included this in FY21 for things like snow, landscaping, holiday decorations, and all of that. So since they are being included for 2022 and beyond, that's where we're seeing really most of that, growth in the levy, because they weren't included in the past and they are now. And that's sort of detailed here.
Wouldn't the city of Chicago just automatically see that because we've expanded our business, that would be the understandable reason that our services are expanded?
We still have to document it, which is what this second tab is for. So basically they flag any line items where there's growth or decrease of 25% or more. So that's where we detail it out in the documentation saying like, this is, growth in, scope of work for the various contracts, so snow is one of them that's in here. We added more for security cameras because they want to add some for Jarvis. They want to add some public art for Jarvis. And then sidewalk maintenance, they'll be included in the snow contract and landscaping. So that's really,
I noticed
what's happening.
On line 5, security cameras, I cannot see the budget because for some reason my screen won't allow me to put that over. Can you tell me if that's enough revenue for the security cameras that we're going to need on Howard Street here?
Yeah, so the annual budget for this year, which is FY21, we're at $20,000 is what's in the budget for this year. I don't have financials in front of me to see what we've spent year to date because we have done quite a bit of camera work, and that also includes the internet service that sort of runs them.
Yeah. So
we are bumping that up a bit for next year. Let me go over to that tab actually, because it's the only thing in there. So 558. Oh wait, no, current year. I'm looking at the wrong thing. Yes, I am. Yeah.
It was line 5.
Yeah. Yeah, so we are seeing an increase. The 20,000 wasn't cameras. I was in a different line item. So current year budget, we're at 5,000. We're taking it up to 8. So it's a 60% increase in the camera line item to account for the need for additional maintenance and potentially adding some cameras for Jarvis.
Okay.
Whoops, that's the wrong thing. Any other questions about an annual budget?
Yeah,
No.
I have 2. About the cameras, maybe I know you're going fast, and again, I'm sorry I'm late, but there was talk at an earlier meeting about tying them in with the city system so the police district could access them right away.
So we do share the login credentials with them. The difficulty that we've had is that we don't have a beat officer yet still to have the logins. So that's sort of where that's at currently. The OEMC cameras you have to buy separately and they're like $80,000. We did it for Devon, but given just like the high costs, it's not something I think we're going to do again.
Okay, but the log, so whenever the police district regardless whether it's a beat person or somebody they just assign, whenever they want to receive the login data, whatever the login in code or information or whatever it is, they will be able to tap into the existing cameras. Is that
Yes,
correct?
correct.
Okay. And then the other question is real basic. Are we all going to get copies of what you're showing us? The
Of the
Typically-
budget?
Sandy, are you able to address that? I don't think in the past we have. They've typically been just uploaded for the city.
We can
And
share, we can
yeah.
share you can share the budget. That's not
Yeah,
a problem.
usually we send financials every month, which includes it, but we haven't gotten them from our accountant
Right. Or
for
if
me
you
to
want,
pass along.
right. If you want to put this, again, I'm not very good at this stuff, but if you want to put this on a website that's accessible to the commissioners, for instance, if that's easier than sending it to us, whatever it is, so that we could access it throughout, throughout the year or at any time.
You could just share it, do a Google Drive.
Yeah, I can
Cindy,
just share it. This is already in Google Drive. I can just share the link. I'll do that now. Copy link. I'm gonna just drop this in the chat. Oops. Oh no, that's not what I wanted to do. I want to continue screen sharing. All right, where's my chat? All right. All right, so the link to the workbook as it currently exists is in the chat. If it doesn't work for you, let me know. I might have to change some permissions. In fact, let me just double check. All right, it should be in anyone with the link can view. So yeah, that should work if anybody wants to go through the whole thing, but the overview sort of flags up the ones that have had like really significant changes from last year. And there's not, as you can see, there's not that many of them.
And again, we're getting revenue from Jarvis Square in this budget that you're showing us now.
We should be. The city hasn't shared the updated EAV figures for the new fiscal year yet. So the number that's still in the budget summary, this EAV is still the 2021, this year's EAV. They told us to just put it in there as a placeholder. We're still waiting for that number to be updated from the county, but it will include Jarvis for the future year.
Okay, so going back to Charlotte's question, if the revenue that we're going to get, the increase that you talked about that is over the city's threshold, that's because of the expenses that you're including in the budget, like for Jarvis Square, in comparison to this estimated EAV. Is that correct?
Even if the EAV changes, it won't change the year-over-year levy data, because the levy is just the amount, the total amount. It's nothing to do with the tax rate. So even if you have the bigger EAV from Jarvis getting added in, you still have an increase in levy from year to year.
Cindy, while we're talking about it, can you tell me what the area that we are getting that cap from on Jarvis? What's the,
Yeah. So it does include all of the commercial buildings in Jarvis Square. So that whole block.
just the commercial buildings?
Right. So we drew it around so that we'd include V-Tone and Anto, as well as the Dan Sullivan's Corner, the dry cleaner strip mall, the Tawani building, and the public storage, Elite on Jarvis, and like all of that. It's not that many buildings.
Yeah, but it's all commercial.
But
so
it is all
that's a good
commercial.
thing.
That's correct.
Yeah.
The map has been updated on our website. I don't have a tab up for it right now, but if you do go to the RPBA SSA 19 page, the new map is up there that shows the
Okay,
pins.
thank you.
Yeah.
And Cindy, I'm sorry, going back to the reason I was asking my question is if we're increased, if the percentage change is that 8.19 instead of 6, and that's because of the expenses. But so the requirement for the meeting is because of the levy change. In other words, let's say the expense change,
Right.
regardless the revenue, whether the revenue balances that off or not.
Yeah, it's correct because the year-over-year increase is only looking at the levy. They're not looking at the change to EAV because
Oh,
of the boundary change.
so based on what was Charlotte was asking, the city is sort of blind to the revenue increase.
Correct.
Okay. Ah, okay.
It is what it is.
Yep. And I'm sorry, did the city give you any idea when they may come in with the new revenue uh, change, or the county?
Typically, they provide it during budget season, so usually in June or July, but because they've moved all of the tax deadlines this year, it's been held up. So I think we're probably looking at July or August, but they still require us to submit our annual budget so they can get started on their part of the work for like getting the ordinances together for passage at council.
Okay.
So we're still sort of at the mercy of their timeline, even if the county isn't.
Okay. And could you please go back to that expense item screen and just let me take another quick look at it.
The overview page, or are you wanting to go tab by tab?
No, this one is okay.
Okay.
This is,
And these, like I said, these ones are only ones where there was an increase or decrease of 25% or more from FY21 to FY22. And some of them are decreases. So the first two on here actually represent items where there was a decrease because we just sort of split things up into different line items. So for decorative banners, we cut that because we replaced most of the banners this year. So hopefully we're not going to need to replace as many like next year. And then for PR and media relations, we just sort of basically split it up by vendor. So we have Silverman now is the only thing in that category, and A5 is in other categories. So it looks like a decrease, but really it's just moving things.
okay. And you, the staff, built in what you thought would be in the dollar amounts, what you thought would be the increases necessary to serve Jarvis Square also. Is that correct?
That's correct. So the big ones here were in public art because they want to add some murals and artwork, sidewalk maintenance because we're adding them to the snow contract, and because we got new bids for snow based on the performance of last year's vendor. So we're increasing the scope of work and probably changing vendors. So there's some cost increases there. Strategic planning, like we're going to be doing some strategic planning in terms of like how we're incorporating Jarvis into like our branding and messaging. Security cameras, we're looking to add some for Jarvis. Bookkeeping and monitoring and compliance is just sort of, again, changing stuff up in terms of where different invoices go to budget. But then, ones that weren't 25%, but were still an increase were things like landscaping and trash removal. We sort of added some padding to those categories too, not 25% worth year over year. But they're the things that are increasing are typically increasing because we're expanding the territory that we're serving.
Right, okay. And in the media relations, I know Sandy mentioned Silverman. And so obviously being new, I'm not familiar with them, but that's both you and Sandy think that this amount is sufficient if for whatever we might want to step up even, or is it a matter of if we need more, we would amend the budget later in the year to move dollars around?
Potentially. So the Silverman contract is actually shared among all three SSAs, and for 2022, we're expanding it to the fourth one. Devon will be participating as well. So that's a bigger contract that's being split 4 ways, basically.
And it's kind of first come, first serve, or whichever SSA needs PR
Yeah,
whatever.
and we sit down with them at the beginning of the year and give them a calendar of all our events so that they can sort of plan accordingly. But then, you know, when we have stuff happening, like we share it with them and they slot it into what they're doing as far as content calendar and press releases and things like that. So the recurring events they do, but then, you know, they'll also, you know, include us if you know, WGN is doing a story that's, you know, relevant to one of our businesses, can get people on camera and things like that. And that's why we do it, because it's really valuable to get our businesses exposure, and help, you know, raise awareness of Rogers Park as a whole, but also each of our individual business districts and businesses.
Right. No, I understand. I think that's a critical item, and that's why I was asking. You know, if let's say Devon does something next month and soaks up the whole budget, we could, you know, we could move money around for this.
Yeah, and they typically don't bill us that way. Like, it's a flat fee contract for the year with Silverman that we share among all four.
Oh, okay. So it's not there's no percentage allocation
Right.
for the SSAs. All right. And are there any admin increases? I know there was one for bookkeeping. Are there any other staff people or things like that?
No, and those expenses are capped by statute as a percentage of budget. The only one that's really changing is the bookkeeping one. And even that, it's not quite changing so much as we're rolling it in. The monitoring and compliance stuff was the same provider, so we're just putting it in the one line item.
Okay.
So you have an increase in bookkeeping and a corresponding decrease in monitoring and compliance.
Okay.
That way we don't have to code two different codes on the same invoice.
Right. And how's the staff doing in the budget?
I mean, I think we just did a flat 3% cost of living is what we did on staff. So that's all that really changed.
Okay. Okay. So the positions are all the same. And,
Yes.
okay.
Any other questions, or does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll motion to approve the annual budget.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. All right, the next thing on the agenda, you know, most of you are aware, Carrie Sullivan has resigned as a commissioner because she's stepped back from her role at factory. And she was our chair, so that leaves us without a chair. So we need to select a new one. Do we have any volunteers?
I've been the chair before. I don't mind being the chair. Or Gail, if you'd like to.
For me, I don't know if I have enough time to contribute. It's my problem.
If Charlotte wants to do it and she's, you know, she's got the experience, that's
Yeah.
okay with me. If it's okay with Charlotte.
All right. Do you want to make a motion to that effect?
I'll move.
And I'll second it.
Okay.
Congratulations,
All
Charlotte.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Congrats. All right. Next up, snow. No one was super thrilled with TSI last year, myself included. So we did do an RFP for 2022, which we would have needed to do anyway due to the changed scope of work now that we're looking to include Jarvis. The only company that responded was Pierce Snow. We've worked with them before. They used to do SSA 54 before that SSA decided to not do snow anymore. So they were the only ones that bid. And I'll take this down for just a second and
Can
look at my own notes.
Cindy, can I ask something?
Sure.
Could I ask something of you? I'd like to know how did SSA 64 do without their snow, without the snow removal?
So I actually didn't get any complaints about the lack of SSA snow service when we did it, versus when we were doing snow. My phone would light up with complaints every time it snowed. So I think it's,
Well,
you know, maybe it's an issue of just kind of managing expectations for folks, you know, if
We
they
have
think,
we have two SSAs now that don't do snow removal. So Clark Morrison Glenwood no longer does snow removal, and Sheridan Road no longer does snow removal.
so it's just up to the property owner then at that point?
correct.
Which is their responsibility anyway,
Right.
right? We offer supplemental services. We always say it's supplemental services.
So what,
So when
what do
people-
what's your guys' opinion? I mean, do you think that maybe we should just try and go without for a year and
Well,
see how that works out?
Charlotte, at the meeting last
What?
during the week when you weren't able to make it, I think Cindy was talking about two different bids, a 1-inch and a 2-inch, and the 2-inch trigger was considerably less than the 1-inch trigger. And
What was the value?
Excuse me, just a minute. And particularly with Jarvis Square coming in this year and presumably with certain expectations or having been told certain things or seeing what happened on Howard, what the services on Howard were and expecting that themselves, I wouldn't be comfortable dropping snow removal for this first year, basically in at least 50% because of the Jarvis, the new folks from Jarvis Square. I don't want them thinking they're getting shafted, but Cindy can go into the bids.
Yeah, so this past year's contract, we had TSI with a 2-inch trigger. That contract amount was $21,000 and didn't include Jarvis in the scope of work. They did not bid on this most recent RFP. The company that did, which is Did, we asked everybody to bid it at 1-inch trigger and a 2-inch trigger. So for Did's response to the RFP, for a 1-inch trigger, they bid $34,900. So almost $35,000.
For both areas.
Sorry?
For both areas.
For including Jarvis, that's correct. Their bid for a 2-inch. Sorry?
I lost the connection. I couldn't hear what you said for the other bid.
Okay, so the Did bid for a 1-inch trigger contract was $34,900. For a 2-inch contract, their bid was $24,900. And both of those bids include Jarvis in the service area. So, and for this past season, TSI's contract amount was $21,000 for a 2-inch trigger, and it didn't include Jarvis.
So basically, I think that we're what's the word? You know, we're being responsible for the coming year, taking, in my opinion, taking the 1-inch bid, the 2-inch bid, the 2-inch trigger bid. And I am also concerned not only about Jarvis Square, but last year was during the pandemic and there weren't that many people trying to go places anyway. And, you know, I think we would want to be as convenient or whatever you want to call it as possible for people this year who hopefully, you know, it won't be the same situation, who want to come to the street. So last year it was crummy service, even with nobody out and with the pandemic. So I think this year we need to look, you know, we need to look good. And then depending on what happens, we can discuss Charlotte's point some more, you know, maybe when we have more in the spring after we see more of what happens, and also decide whether our merchants, particularly on Howard, are the same as what you're finding, what the staff is finding on Clark and Sheridan, because our merchants and our building owners may not be the, you know, may not be as whatever you want to call it, as some of these other streets. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
so I would move to take, you know, I don't want to end the discussion, but I would be willing to make a motion to take the 2-inch trigger for this winter.
I would
Alright.
agree.
You guys, I lost the connection and I just rejoined the meeting for a minute. What was the value of the 2-inch from the other computer?
So the proposal from Pearsa for the 2-inch trigger was $24,900, including Howard
heard
and
that.
Jarvis. Versus this past year, it was
I thought you said
21,000.
34,000?
The 34,900 was for a 1-inch trigger.
Yeah.
So we
I
have a
agree.
motion on the floor to move
And
forward
what's
with
the
the
2-inch?
2-inch one. The 2-inch trigger is 24,900
For both areas.
for Jarvis and for Howard, correct?
Gail, you,
I second it. I agree with it.
okay. Okay, good. I think it's a good thing.
Okay, great. All right. Next up, we'll move through some bid app, some facade applications. So we have 3. Good News Partners, Athena Board Game Cafe, and Anto. Let me pull up this folder. So who did I have on first? So Good News Partners. So this is for their facility on Paulina. It doesn't have any signage or anything currently. It's their transitional housing shelter for women and children. It used to be an auto body facility, and my cat is here now. They are looking to make some upgrades that include, making the interior nicer and adding air conditioner. But the piece of it that's, most relevant to us is the facade work, which is pretty considerable. So here's what the space looks like now. It's got this sort of car park bay. Can everybody see this?
Yes.
So that's what it looks like now. There's no signage. This door at the very back
I can
is
see
the entrance to the shelter, but they've had issues with people sort of loitering in here. It's not very pretty. So they're, as part of their capital improvements, oh wow, So as part of their capital improvements, they're going to be looking to close that in so that they can actually use this space. So basically it'll be new masonry and new glazing to sort of fill in that car bay. So that's the part of proposal that they're requesting funding for. It'll be the maximum $5,000 rebate just based on project scope. The quotes that they submitted were in excess of $50,000 for the facade work that they're contemplating. So they're at the full $5,000 amount.
I think it's great.
Any questions?
I'm
There-
fine with
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Charlotte. Oops. Hello?
Oh,
We hear ya.
Charlotte again? Charlotte, are you there?
I would vote for that.
Okay. I have a question. Is there any signage on the facade?
So there is no signage provided currently. The architectural drawings that I have from them that were submitted don't seem to include it either, just based on the nature of that facility and what it's used for. Signage isn't maybe really what they're looking to do, because they do, have folks that are fleeing domestic violence and things like that. They don't want it to be super obvious what's there. But I think given the context, that's probably fine. Because I think that the renovations that they're proposing, I think will really go a long way to making that street look more appealing.
Okay. And I guess, yeah, I'm willing to take a chance. I mean, no signage is fine. I just wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be like a, 80-foot neon sign with a big arrow pointing.
No, it's the opposite.
Okay, because I know it doesn't sound like you have a signage caveat in the agreement. And are the little rectangles, there's 4 little rectangles towards the top. Is that, and another couple of triangles. Is that exterior lighting?
I believe that it is. But the scope that we're dealing with here, it's masonry and glazing.
Okay. As Sandy may remember from a long time ago, we used to press for, kind of maximum exterior lighting because it would help the street as well as the individual structure. So could you ask them about that?
They sent me their full stack of drawings. Let me see if I can pull the lighting schedule. I cropped it just because the file was super big. I'll check that on the lighting schedule, because the full set they sent me was a gigantic file that I didn't have room for on this computer.
Yeah.
But the lighting schedule was there.
And I'm willing to go ahead with this now, not knowing that, but if you could encourage them to, you know, maximize, I mean, in addition for their use, their specific use, which you'd think they'd want it to be well lit, that we, you know, if those are lights of some kind, great. If they're not, if they'd be willing to consider, like if they're, like you said, some sort of masonry feature, if they'd be willing to put in a couple more, that would be good.
I'm pretty sure that they are. I just don't have the lighting schedule in front of me.
Okay, yeah, no, just if in the next few days, if you get a chance, please let us know.
All right, somebody want to make a motion?
I'll motion to approve the BIP.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Oh, Cindy, can you, or maybe with Silverman, I don't know, can you try to make sure that there's some understanding with them that when they do a press release, you know, when they talk about this, or if they do it even in their own internal newsletters, that they give credit to the SSA as one of the funders?
I'll certainly ask.
I mean, maybe that's something we should, you know, try to get some wording on and include in all of these facade rebate agreements.
They are doing a pretty big capital program, capital fundraising right now for this project. So, I mean, I can certainly, you know, ask that we be included on the list of sponsors for that. I think I have no reason to think that they would push back on it at all, because they are doing capital campaign right now.
Yeah, just so we're not there, you know, just to list us in the funders. That's great.
All right, next up is Athena Board Game Cafe. I don't have drawings to show you for this one, and it's a really small dollar amount. She is just looking for about $300 as the 50% match to replace her plate glass window that was damaged by gunfire. We did the same thing for Soul Cafe last summer when they had the same problem. So just sort of.
Did we do a match for Soul Cafe, or did we pay the whole thing?
We did a match. It was a 50-50. She had more glass, so it was more money. The windows at Athena aren't nearly as big.
Does Athena realize that if she puts a BIP in now, that there's a 3-year wait for anything else?
I did tell her that.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'll approve it for $300 or more or less.
I'll second it.
All right, thanks. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and then the last one, Anto, this is another big one, but I think it's a really cool project. That's not the right window though. So Anto, as you know, it's Jarvis Square. He owns both buildings, the building where Anto is currently located and the V-Tone Fitness building. And what he is looking to do is he is looking to relocate Anto across the street. So there are several group fitness studios sort of at the eastern edge of the Anto facility. He's going to be subdividing that to move Anto across the street, basically. So let me pull up his drawings. So here's the front elevation. I'll zoom in. So this is looking at the front of what is now V-Tone. And he's calling for the creation of separate storefront entrances. And then also the section that's the furthest to the right here is where Anto's gonna go. So it's got a door, new glazing, and he's looking to enclose the patio that sort of is right, you know, between where his building ends and the L tracks begin. He's proposing to put a small roof over that to have a larger patio. And then where am my floor plans. So then it's sort of a triangular shaped floor plan here for the restaurant, where he's planning to put everything. So it basically allows for the restaurant to have indoor seating beyond like the 4 tables I think he's got in there right now. And add a covered outdoor patio here. But again, facade, it's primarily the glazing, the patio, and new signage that he's requesting funding for. Again, this will be a request for the full $5,000 50-50 match because his total project cost is like $250,000, $300,000.
Sounds like he's doing some really extensive work. Now
It's really exciting.
that little patio, is that going to be something that's going to be like an enclosed spot for, you know, heated so it can be used year round?
I'm looking. I don't think he's fully enclosing it, but he is putting a roof.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I would vote for that.
Yeah.
I think that's great. I'm happy to see that he's putting so much money into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cindy, I have a couple of points. On the patio that Charlotte just asked about, is that going to be right on the sidewalk?
So with this one, it's kind of neat because it doesn't have to be. He's actually, so this area where this outdoor patio is on the drawing, right now it's just kind of like a weird little courtyard that's fenced in, but they're not really using it for anything.
It runs against the tracks, doesn't it?
Yeah, so this wall here is the CTA viaduct.
Okay, so that's the south elevation, the south wall.
Correct.
Okay, so the patio will not be on the sidewalk per se, it'll be in the back of the restaurant.
It'll be to the side of the restaurant in between the eastern wall and the CTA tracks.
Right, it'll be basically enclosed. That's
right.
Okay, that was my question. And going back to the other two things, you know, with the last one, first of all, can we get him to add any exterior lighting? And when I talk about that, we used to ask the people who were applying for these things to make sure that their architect put on the exterior lighting so that it could be on even when the business was not open. You know, using that timer controls and not just an on-off switch next to the, you know, inside door of each business. Because again, we and it made a difference that it was on, as Sandy may remember, the main building that got it on Howard was the one that has the laundromat in it.
Mm-hmm.
Rogers and Greenview and all, and the lights are still up and on. Even some, but particularly we were trying to get people to keep them on for just appearance and security and so on. They didn't have to be fancy lighting, or else to do the same thing with the windows, like the Caribbean Bakery I think used to do, where the lighting would be on. Well, I guess the Caribbean Bakery was probably baking at night, but anyway, where the lighting would be on, would be able to be kept on in the windows. So somehow or other, the street wouldn't be dark when the businesses were closed in the building.
Right.
And
we can ask them to do this, Dave, but it's not required in the BIP application.
Yeah,
so we could always suggest it, but we can't not allow them the funding based on their reluctance to add lighting. Just FYI.
And I'm looking through here just to see if he's got a lighting schedule separate for the exterior. I don't see one, but he does have some lighting here on the patio.
It says right on the thing, electric legend, all exit signs and emergency lights to be battery backup.
Right, but I think most of these are interior except for these patio lights.
So is there anything else that we've got to vote on? Because I'm going to have to blast off pretty soon.
I wanted to have some discussion about meeting times since we keep having trouble getting quorum. Like maybe we need to move meeting times, but maybe that can happen offline. I'll follow up with each of you separately. We
Sandy,
can have the last item.
I want to go back to Sandy's point. I understand we may or may not want to ask him at this point because he's already supplied it, but then I'd like to put on the agenda for next time that we talk about adding that requirement to the facade rebate to our facade rebate application.
Dave, I don't really think that, you know, we're just giving him the $5,000 as, you know, like a sort of like as a good faith community effort. I don't, you know, he's putting $250,000 in. I don't know if it's really our place to say, hey, we'll give you the.
I'm not saying that we should hold up this one. I'm talking about the future, so that people who apply for this, if anybody ever applies for them again, are aware that it's something that they need to build into this. That's what. It doesn't cost that much money, Charlotte.
So Dave, we can't require it. So the city of Chicago approves our business improvement program application. And we can't require them to do certain things that we want to do. We're not allowed to. We can suggest.
Okay, so you're saying that the city has a one citywide business facade rebate set of guidelines or applications?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that they approved ours.
Right, so we
And
can ask them.
and we cannot put anything in there that requires the.
Not on this one. I'm not okay if everybody wants to let this one go. And we have no idea of what the signage is going to be, right? Whether it's all going to be flush or overhanging or whatever. Is that correct also?
Yeah, but what I'm saying, Dave, is we can't do like a tit for tat. The city won't let us do that. I'm talking in the future. We can't say we're only going to approve this if you do lighting. The city will not let us do that.
Okay.
Anyway, I'd like to make a motion to approve this $5,000.
I'll
Okay.
second it.
Thank you.
All right.
All in favor?
I abstain.
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks everybody for being here and weathering the technical difficulties. I'll follow up with folks regarding meeting times. We are still scheduled for the next meeting Wednesday, August 18th. That'll be 9 a.m. most likely at Factory Theater. I'll be coordinating that with Tim, but we are required to move back to in-person meetings after Saturday. So the August meeting will be a live in-person meeting.
That's great. I look forward to seeing everybody.
Exactly.
All right.
Take care, you guys. Appreciate it.
Everyone.
Everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you, Dave.
All right.
Bye.
Aye.
Bye-bye.